AEMO On Air, the podcast about all things energy. Brought to you by the Australian Energy Market Operator.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the AEMO On Air podcast. My name's Katie Lowe and I'll be your host for this episode. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the lands that we meet on today, the Wurundjeri, Woi Wurrung and Bunurong people, and I'd like to pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. Okay, let's get on with the interview. Today, my guests for this conversation are Mary Huang and Jaleel Mesbah from Monash University. Mary and Jaleel are both recipients of the ZEMA Energy Studies Scholarships. This was a program that was launched back in 2019, and it was actually launched to honour AEMO's inaugural CEO, the late Matt ZEMA. And Monash Uni and AEMO developed this program really to nurture the future energy leaders in Australia across a number of different disciplines. And the thinking behind this was that the scholarship would support research and more broadly just better understanding of our energy systems and the challenges posed by the rapid growth of renewables as we approach the retirement of the coal-fired generators we've relied on for so many decades. And this is also a very special episode for us because it marks a key milestone, the 1-year anniversary of the podcast. And I can't think of a better way to celebrate than by talking to two of the energy industry's rising stars. So welcome, Jaleel and Mary. It's so nice to have you here.
Nice to be here.
Thanks, Katie, for having us.
Pleasure. I might put this question to you first, Mary. Before we get into the detail of the scholarship and what it's meant to you personally, can you tell me a little bit about why you're interested in the energy sector?
So I guess first of all, I have to explain how I got here in the first place. My career path's not been a linear one because you don't just wake up in the morning one day and think you're going to be working in the energy sector. So I started off my undergrad. After my undergrad, I worked in strategy and I had a startup. And then after I exited the startup, I started my Masters of Data Science while also working as a consultant at SGS Economics and Planning. I also had my first baby during that time.
And so you've been busy.
Yes. But I also attended my first academic conference called Visualization, and it was there that I presented my master's thesis, which was on energy networks and seeing how geography was beneficial in interpreting that network. And it was also along that same time because one child's not enough. I had a second baby. And then that was the turning point where I wanted to shift my focus and completely just focus on one project. Because in consulting, there's not a lot of budget to I guess explore different ways to do new things. And this PhD has always been on the back of my mind, and it was just the perfect opportunity to combine my interest in economic and sustainable projects along with my love of maps, because the energy network is a map because it has a physical infrastructure. And all right, let's come up with something new, see where we could better represent the network, and that's how we landed on this career path. So.
Okay, amazing. That's really interesting. So you've obviously had a fair bit of experience before you've got here.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that experience has helped?
Definitely. So in consulting, I feel that the skills in terms of stakeholder engagement, really understanding what the client's needs and delivering on that would help me narrow down my study completely, because we're not trying to create something huge as part of the PhD. We're furthering something that already exists. So we're just pushing something a little bit further. We're not creating a new battery. We're making a battery better, something like that, but for the field of visualization and energy networks.
Okay.
So
that's great. Thank you so much. Jaleel, tell me about your journey.
Yeah, sure thing. Mine's probably a lot more linear, I think, compared to that.
That's okay.
It's interesting, actually. I did electrical and electronic engineering back in the day. I hadn't really planned on getting into energy, but I think basically when I was presented with the options that were available, it was either go into power and energy versus like other sectors like defense. The fact that I guess energy makes a difference, it is part of tackling climate change, that was a big motivating factor for me. But I've basically been in the transition. I've worked in the transition industry for about 15 years.
Okay.
So I worked for utilities and consultancies.
Okay.
And I've also had the idea of a PhD in the back of my mind, but it just took me a while to work out a good topic to do.
Yeah. In that time, over that 15 years, if you can look back, how much has the profile, do you think, of energy as a community issue and a consumer issue changed?
Yeah, I mean, I think quite a lot. I think back when I started, particularly interest in renewables wasn't so high. I mean, this was a long time ago.
Yeah.
2010. So it's actually been amazing to see over the past, say, around 5 years, probably a little bit longer, there be so much interest in renewable energy. And I guess the quantities of renewable energy that are getting integrated, like I just would have never thought that would be possible, looking forward back when I started my career. So yeah, that was a fantastic thing to see.
Yeah, really interesting to see that progress, because that timing probably almost aligns with the big uplift we've seen in terms of rooftop solar on people's homes. So that kind of career pathway for you is probably aligned with that growing understanding at a consumer level and a really quite powerful level. Yeah. Okay, thanks. I might stay talking with you just about the scholarship. Now, the scholarship provides a bit of financial support for you, and as I understand, there's also some opportunities to come and work at AEMO. You're currently here, but you're on a secondment supported by the Australian Renewable Energy Agency. Can you tell me a little bit about the work that you're doing for AEMO at the moment?
Yeah, definitely. So maybe before I get into that, I'll just briefly mention that, the scholarship does provide that opportunity. And I think that talking to some of the other scholars that have also done this, done internships at AEMO, it's quite useful to people. I think some just get general experience that rounds them out, and others maybe focus more on the area of research they're looking at. So in my particular case, there was already a project running through ARENA, which is aligned with my PhD. So this project basically is around building a new software tool that implements some of the concepts that I'm looking at for my PhD. So in my PhD, I'm focusing around analysing grid oscillations.
Yes, okay.
And
you might have to describe to us, if you can, what a grid oscillation is.
Yeah, sure. Maybe I'll explain why it matters first.
Sure.
And this relates to, experience that I've had in the industry where I've come across, say, renewable projects that want to get connected up. There's an oscillation that is detected that could happen. This is basically, if I maybe try and use a mechanical analogy, I think people have probably seen that old video of, I think it's the Tacoma Narrows Bridge in the US. It has a natural frequency, so it swings at a particular frequency. And I think there was one day where it was a particularly windy day. And these two things together, the natural frequency and the wind, meant that it basically shook itself apart.
Okay.
Right? The swings were so violent that it tore itself apart. So in the grid, the same sort of thing happens, but it's happening on the level of voltages and power flow and that sort of thing. So you can't see it, but it is there. Yep. And it has the potential to cause damage, cause blackouts, that sort of thing.
Yep.
And with the introduction of renewables, there's just a high risk of this occurring.
So does it interrupt the stability of the grid?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So it makes
it's a stability issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it makes it harder for the people sitting in the kind of real-time operations centres to maintain that stability and to be confident that supply and demand can be kept in balance.
Yeah, essentially.
Broadly?
Broadly, yes. Yes. But basically, it's a high risk. You can't operate a grid that has oscillations, but they're also very hard to pinpoint to find out where they're coming from, what's causing them.
Yeah, okay.
So, this tool that we're making is helping the industry analyze the oscillations. Yeah.
So does the work you're doing at AEMO, does it sort of support your study or is it complementary to? Can you kind of...
Yeah, it's probably more complementary. So what it is that in my studies, I've had to learn some fundamentals around some of these oscillation analysis techniques.
Yep.
And so the work at AEMO is more about applying those techniques. So in my PhD, I'll still need to do research and solve research problems. This is more about an application.
Yeah. And the oscillations, are they specific to renewable generation?
They are, yeah. So there's, historically in conventional power systems, there have been oscillations, but those are very well understood. They're quite different to the oscillations we get with renewable generation.
Yeah, okay.
So these are specifically to do with renewable generation, and they're difficult to analyze because of the characteristics of renewable generation, which I can go into a bit more.
Yeah, okay. No, that's a really good explanation. Thank you. All right, Mary, the ZEMA program was set up very deliberately to be focused across a number of different disciplines, so not just engineering or not just IT. Do you have a lot of opportunities to collaborate with the other students who are scholarship recipients, and has that had an impact on your kind of the work you're doing or your broader perspective?
Definitely. So first of all, my supervisory team is a cross venture between engineering and IT. And when I say IT, I don't mean like administration in terms of we're not doing research where I'm someone you call where you need to reset your password or like cybersecurity.
Yes.
We're talking, so I'm part of a lab called Embodied Visualization, and the research that happens in our lab is about furthering the understanding of data through like an immersive like interaction. So that could be physically, whether you could like touch something and twist it to like gain more data points with a tabletop or a hologram, or it could be like a VR experience where you're wearing goggles and you're spatially moving around the room, where the room is like a power station in this case.
Yep.
So it's all anything cool in tech would probably come out of our lab. So like all the holograms and the goggles and the tactile sensory events.
Essentially, it's about considering or experimenting with different ways of representing data.
Yes.
And then by the sounds of it, you're also getting into exploring the potential of manipulating that data as well.
Yes.
It's not a model in the sense that perhaps some people think of a model like a model aeroplane or a model building that is a static thing that represents something. Your models are interactive in the sense that you can perhaps change data and look at the impact that change has on the total data set.
In a way. So we still work with like desktop interactions, so what you see in front of your computer screen, and maybe you could like or your touch screen. So that's like furthering that to have a little bit more interactions in terms of dragging your finger across the screen that does something. So that's the type of interactions. But what I'm getting at is our faculty does a lot of, projects with other faculties. So my supervisors they're very good at marketing our research, and they've got me involved in a lot of workshops that involve like other faculty. So there was one project recently I was part of that is about geovisualization and explainable AI. So it's like using AI and trying to incorporate this. How do you explain AI models that help where to put new wind farms?
Yep.
Like spatially, as in like,
okay.
So there's this model that tells you where to put them. How do we explain this to a common stakeholder who has no like data science knowledge at all?
Okay.
So then this was like there's academics from like the weather faculty, there's from the business faculty, there's us from IT who are designing the tool, and then there's like the AI who build the model. So and everyone has like a different perspective of how this like tool should look, and they don't know what capabilities there are, but they just, I guess the main goal is like highlighting the risk that of where these like wind farms like should go. So it's quite interesting to see because you see perspectives that you just don't. I guess you don't realise because you're so deep in the project and you have this tunnel vision sometimes, and you're like, oh, hang on, we need to consider like just from a business aspect as well, and like how they're going to use the tool. Do we need to make it a bit more user friendly?
Yeah.
And just like other aspects like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you kind of distill to me kind of what your PhD research is?
Yeah. So this ties back to like my love of maps and spatial data. So at the beginning of every PhD, we have to do a literature review, which is like just finding what's been done in the area so far. Because like you can have a brilliant idea, but somebody's already probably done it before. So what got me into this PhD was there was also like a paper that I read back in 2023 and it was about like geospatial networks. And I thought it was like brilliant. Like I've never got excited by like a publication before. And when I started the PhD, and I really wanted to write something like that, but for like energy networks. So then months into my first year, we did a literature survey of what's been done in this space in engineering and graph drawing, which is like another scientific term for what a energy network looks like, and in the visualization space. And we came up with like a taxonomy which kind of like describes everything in the space. And this this is taxonomy that we came up with that we submitted to a journal conference recently, so fingers crossed that gets good reviews. It kind of groups visualizations in terms of their intent, as in I group them in terms of time sensitivity, as in something, it's a data point that you would look at if you were responding to something urgent. And then if you're responding to something that you're just like monitoring the network, you might refer to different types of visuals. And then if you're doing activities that are not time sensitive, you'll look at something else. Like at all points of this time spectrum, you're looking at different data representations. And this was the taxonomy that we came up with, and then it explored different techniques that were like dominant in what helps like build a visualization that was like effective in like an immediate response. So happy to link the paper if anybody wants to read it, but that was the first like publication that we recently submitted last week. And I guess like what goes from there is that shapes up the rest of my PhD journey, which is now that I've got this taxonomy of how energy network visualizations are, as in this taxonomy that fits everything. Yes. I'm going to target one facet of that and build on it. So I'll see what's been done in the space, see what's good and like effective or not, and try to like just marry things together, see if they work, and test it out with user testing or not. Because ultimately, the PhD is a design one, so we're building something that people could see and respond to.
Yes. Yeah. And would that have application for AEMO and more broadly in the industry?
Well, we hope so. So research is only good if it could be like reproduced by someone else and like applicable across domains. So the taxonomy we came up with, we did provide examples that it could be applied in like the healthcare and response industry, it could be applied in cybersecurity. So I hope that something that I do come up with the next 2 years on the network visualizations is not only applicable to just the energy, but other industries that do have a network representation.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. So interesting. Jaleel, your research is looking at, as I understand it, the integration of large-scale renewables into our grid.
Yep.
Can you tell me a little bit about what it was about this topic that drew you in?
Yeah, I think there were essentially two parts to this. One was that I, through that industry work experience through my career, I was involved in studies to connect up renewable generation. And on several occasions, I came across, technical issues like these oscillations that I mentioned before, where there just wasn't a good solution out there to resolve the problem. A lot of these projects, they can be impacted by issues like this. They potentially get delayed. So
Okay.
they lose money.
Yes.
And it has an impact on the energy transition as a whole.
Yeah.
So I'd had that experience, and then also looking forward to practically make the energy transition work. This is what is proposed to be done, and makes sense, is to have renewable energy zones, so large hubs where a lot of renewable capacity gets connected up, sort of coordinating the transmission and the generation together, which has to be. This is the way that we'll get to the end goal of transitioning. But these renewable energy zones, by their very nature, are highly susceptible to stability problems and oscillations.
Are there issues associated with the fact that there's a concentration of them geographically? Does that also impact the kind of risk associated with those oscillations?
The risk comes from that, basically.
From the concentration
and
the fact that you
in
have
a small
lot.
area. Exactly.
Okay.
And the fact that they're complex, so they involve multiple different kinds of technologies, wind, solar, batteries, also from lots of different vendors.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's for these reasons that this is an issue. And I could see that this problem that I'd already come across would just become like even bigger and bigger going into the future. So it seemed to me like a really good time to try and actually focus and try and help solve some of these issues.
Are there other jurisdictions globally? Because this is not a challenge that's unique to Australia. Virtually none of the big challenges associated with the transition of the energy system in Australia are unique to this part of the world. So many different countries are grappling with these issues. Are there any other parts of the world that you look to that have come up with interesting ideas or solutions or research?
So I think, I think that in Australia, I think with regard to some of these issues, is on the leading edge.
Yeah.
So we're kind of coming across it first, but definitely overseas, they're also going to come across these problems. And one area that's quite relevant are these energy islands in Denmark, which involve.
What are they?
Yeah, so these are basically it's similar to a renewable energy zone in that it's a big hub out in the middle of the ocean, though.
Offshore.
Offshore, yeah.
Okay.
And there's basically HVDC transmission that connects it to the rest of the grid.
Okay.
So there's a lot of similarities with renewable energy zones. So that's one area where there's a direct.
So again, it's that idea of a concentration of renewable generations
right.
across a relatively small geographical area.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so interesting. Okay. I'd like to ask a general question. I'll go to you first, Mary. I guess getting you to think about the work you do and connecting it back to the transition. If I was able to give you a genie in a bottle who could grant you one wish to change one thing about our power system, what would it be? What's the one issue that you think about or that might keep you up at night?
That's a hard one because there's only one wish.
You can, yes, there is only one wish. It's a mean genie.
Actually, but I'm going to have to make these two wishes. So
Okay.
one selfish wish and one community wish.
Okay.
So my selfish wish would be I would love my EV to be permanently charged while I'm at Monash and not be charged idle fees. So maybe we could come up with a rotating stackable EV charging car park that would just rotate my car when it's fully charged, and then put another one that is in the stacker on the wireless charging port. So that
There's
reckon
surely
yes.
someone in your cohort who can help out with
yes,
that.
I think so too. And I guess the general community actually I have a lot of ideas in this. Another one would be like an island. If I guess this comes from my working at economics consultancy. It would be interesting to see again with this EV charging station there to be in planning policy a specific number of EVs per council, and maybe councils could be little mini smart microgrids that could store power, transfer power towards like and do an exchange within different councils, and obviously they'll come out at a price, but then they'll use like their gains from that to like, I guess, build better community infrastructure. So it'll be just like a circular economy in a way, like generate your own power, exchange that power, and use the gains from that to like better the community again. Yeah. So it would be interesting to see if that could be like, that's idealistic, but...
Yeah, but really interesting. Yeah. And I guess some of when we talk about technology and innovation in this space, I guess there's a tendency to kind of look to the really big things and the big infrastructure or the grid in totality, and yet there's a sense that the transition will probably be achieved by a combination of really perhaps quite small community-focused innovation along with kind of the changes that are occurring to help us run the grid more effectively and more securely.
So just like the 2024 like windstorm in the east, like if there was like a small community like microgrid where you could just like disconnect from the grid, that you could have not been affected by that blackout that was less than a day, that would have been interesting to see.
Yeah, really interesting. And your turn, Jalil. You've had a bit longer to think about what you're going to ask the genie for.
So I feel
and
like...
if we gave Mary too, I feel like it's a bit mean to not give him too.
No, all good. I feel like my experience has probably tainted this answer. To me, actually, the biggest challenge, I think, is the just the workforce, just the people they're available to do all of the things that are needed to make the energy transition happen.
Yeah.
There's just such a shortage.
Yes.
So my wish would be to duplicate or triplicate the workforce.
The skilled workforce that's supporting this work. Does Australia have an advantage in that we are sort of at the leading edge in some of the work underway? Or does that not make a huge difference in the kind of global arm wrestle for talent?
Yeah, I feel like it might work the other way in that the issues have come up so quickly that there hasn't been time to I guess train people up and have that workforce available. I'm sure it's a difficult issue everywhere in the world.
Yes.
But I feel like if you're in a place where you see this coming and it's still a few years off, that's maybe not so... I mean, it's still hard. Yeah. But you can do something there. Whereas us in the middle of it, it's already happening.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a difficulty.
Yeah. Well, hopefully talking to you today is inspirational for some of our listeners who might have young relatives or friends who are sort of still at school and thinking about careers, because I think that's a really important pipeline as well, kind of getting those kids excited about the opportunities and the fact that there are lots of challenges and lots of issues that we're feeling our way through. Thank you so much for having a chat to me today. I wish we had longer. There's so many different topics we would get into, but it's been really lovely to have you here today. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you. Before I sign off today, I'd really like to acknowledge the many people who have helped bring AEMO on air to life in the last year. I need to start with our GM of Communications, Paul Zanaro, who had the vision for this, and for the many, many subject experts across AEMO who've taken time out of very busy schedules to come and have a chat, to share their stories and to help us all understand how those stories fit into the energy transition. And finally, but crucially, a huge thank you to our sound engineers, to Cam, to Perrin and to Charlotte, for giving up their time to make us all sound pitch perfect each and every episode. Thank you.